Jason, we're all set now?
Good now.
Okay, thank you. Going to call the meeting to order, the City of Walker Planning Commission for December 16, 2020. First item on the agenda is what we just did, call the meeting to order. Next item deals with a review of the meeting minutes from the meeting of December 2nd, 2020. In terms of commissioners, you'll note that on page 14 of the minutes, there's a couple of notations under the motion to approve the Kent County Road Commission project. And as we look at approving these minutes, we just want to verify whether condition 4 and condition 6, which were discussed as part of the deliberations, but when the motion was recited to be moved and supported, these two conditions were not read into the record. So the question is whether it was our intent or the motion maker's intent to include conditions 4 and 6 listed on page 14.
I don't have any problem with these two that were on here, Terry. But how do we read those in then?
You may be able to approve the minutes as written. So I added conditions that that we discussed as being conditions, but they weren't necessarily read into the record exactly how they're shown in the minutes. I summarized them so that I could send them over to the Kent County Road Commission representatives. And then, but when I sent the motion sheet that I revised to reflect what we actually discussed and intended to be conditions, I also sent that over to Carol, who does our meeting minutes, and she wasn't 100% comfortable with the verbiage, only because of that's not how it was recited into the record, as Terry mentioned.
Yeah, and that's probably my fault, but I think we had talked through those things in the meeting, and that's kind of where I probably was reading off some type of version, or I skimmed right over it, but I think the intention was to permit those or to include those items as they were presented in the proposed motion.
Well, then I would make a motion to accept the minutes of the December 2nd Planning Commission meeting, noting that we amended the number 4 and number 6 under the motion for the Kent County Road Commission. And the Planning Commission agrees to these amendments, and it was intended to be in there.
I support.
Okay, we have a motion by Tyler, supported by Jason, to approve the minutes as noted in Tyler just said. Do we have any question on that motion? In this particular case, since it is a correction of the, we should take a roll call vote just to confirm this.
Sure. Terry?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes, I'm having trouble here. Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Is Tom Bile with us yet? I see a TJB. I'm not sure if that's Tom Bile or not. And if it is, he's muted.
Well, at this point, what we'll consider him not participating in this particular vote.
Okay.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is general public comment. This is an opportunity to encourage the expression of questions and concerns regarding non-public hearing items and issues not on the agenda. Speakers must identify themselves by name and address, and time will be allotted to consider the comments. Is there anyone out there that would wish to offer comment on a non-agenda item? If you do, if you're calling in, you hit *9 and that will indicate that you would wish to speak. If you have come in on the internet, go to the participants, find your name, and you'll have an opportunity. There'll be an icon to raise your hand. Jason, do you have anyone that's raising their hand?
I don't see any.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. It's case number 20-880. It's a final site plan review. It is a public hearing for a location on Northridge Drive, Northwest, Hydrolico, new 20,000 square foot industrial building. And I'll turn this over to Tricia Anderson, the planning director, to introduce the request.
Hi, so I'm going to share my screen so I can put my presentation up here. There we go. Okay, so our applicant is a company called Hydrolico, who's asking for a final area site plan at 3164 Northridge Drive, also known as Lot 1 of the Northridge East Industrial PUD. And the action requested by the Planning Commission tonight is to review the final area site plan for a new 20,000 square foot industrial building for Hydrolico, and to provide an approval with or without conditions, denial, or tabling of the request. The size of the lot is 3.15 acres. Zoning district is industrial PUD. The future land use designation is business, and the property is located in the Northwest neighborhood, and its community character designation is enterprise. The general location of the project site is at the southeast corner of Northridge Drive and the South Industrial Drive. And we have Jeff Schut from Visser Brothers and Adam Feenstra from Feenstra and Associates, who are representing the folks from Hydrolico. So just a little bit about Hydrolico. They have their world headquarters in Quebec, Canada, and they speak a lot of French there in Quebec. And so it was interesting having our site plan review committee meeting with some people who speak French. And so they also have an additional production facility in Granville. And they specialize in custom hydraulic cylinder products. And I'm guessing that the folks from Hydrolico will want to expand on what they do just a little bit further, because I'm sure there's way more to it than what I just mentioned. Here is the Northridge East Industrial PUD with an arrow pointing at Lot 1. It's situated there on the corner of Northridge Drive and South Industrial Drive, part of Phase 1 as amended in the Northridge East IPUD. And so what they're proposing for this site is a 20,000 square foot building for office, shipping, and warehouse and manufacturing uses. And they're proposing 28 parking spaces and 3 loading and unloading areas for shipping and receiving. They're also proposing lighting, landscaping, and stormwater management facilities for the site. And they've also designated some space for future 18,000 square foot expansion with 5,000 square feet of parking, which would equate to 11 spaces. Here's the overall site layout. Phase 1 would be here, and if they decide to construct phase 2, that would be located here. And here's the additional parking that I mentioned. Stormwater management facilities here, sidewalks along the public streets, parking, and areas for truck turnarounds and loading here. So just getting into some of the areas of my staff report. We'll start off here with signage. So typically when we have an applicant for a final area site plan within a PUD, we ask if they give us any signage requests at the time of final area site plan review, because sometimes signage can be asked for as a PUD benefit. The applicant has not provided any signage details. So just wanted to go through what they are eligible to have out there for signage. Being on a corner lot, the site's permitted to have 2 wall signs, one facing Northridge Drive and then the other facing South Industrial Drive. And then they can also have 1 ground mount sign, not to exceed 48 square feet. A little bit more on phasing here. I mentioned that phase 1 is what we are looking at tonight. And the improvements included with phase 1 would be the parking areas shown here, and the loading and unloading areas shown here. Landscaping up to about the line where the stormwater detention areas begin. Sidewalks up until this point. We'll talk more about sidewalks in just a minute. And so a phase 2 is anticipated, but it is not required. So I just wanted to make that clear. We're not requiring phase 2 just because it's on the FASP as part of the phase 1 site plan approval. So back to sidewalks. So the applicant is responsible for installing sidewalks at this point in time up to the temporary, right where the temporary cul-de-sac starts of South Industrial Drive. This street will end up being extended in the future when phase 2 of the Northridge East PUD comes to fruition. And so at that time, when the temporary cul-de-sac is removed, then the applicant is responsible for extending the sidewalk down to the southern property line. For landscaping, what they've shown in the landscaping plan that was submitted is acceptable. But I just wanted to note that like the sidewalks, they're showing landscaping stopping right here because obviously this little temporary cul-de-sac is kind of where they would be placing landscaping. So they are responsible for installing the rest of the landscaping down to the southern property line of Lot 1 after South Industrial Drive has been extended. And then an added condition of approval is that the Planning Commission allow the applicant to work with staff on submitting a final landscape plan prior to the issuance of occupancy. And then just a couple other minor items that we have with the site plan. We didn't have a last revision date on the plans that were submitted and included in your packet. So the revised plans that we'll ask for prior to the issuance of a building permit must have the latest revision date. So that would include the date that they were revised to submit for the Planning Commission, and then also the date that they were revised to submit for building permit issuance. We would also like to see information regarding Hydrolico, the name and address, contact person right there on the cover sheet. And then additionally, we have there's items in the city engineer's report dated 12/8/2020 that must also be addressed. And so just a summary of the conditions here that I'm recommending. So I'm recommending that the Planning Commission grant final area site plan approval for a new 20,000 square foot industrial building for Hydrolico on Lot 1 of the Northridge East IPUD, also known as 3164 Northridge Drive Northwest, subject to the following conditions. So the applicant shall add the last revision dates to the revised plans and Hydrolico information on the cover sheet to be submitted prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant shall extend sidewalk construction to the south property line of Lot 1 after the construction of the extension of South Industrial Drive. The applicant shall extend landscape plantings to the south property line of Lot 1 after the construction of the extension of South Industrial Drive. Excuse me. And then number 4, a final landscape plan shall be reviewed and approved by staff prior to the issuance of occupancy. The applicant shall submit full color building elevation renderings prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant shall revise the building elevation drawings to label north elevation as Northridge Drive elevation and the west elevation as South Industrial Drive elevation. And then the last one, the applicant shall address items in the city engineer's report dated December 8, 2020. And that is all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Tricia. Commissioners, any comments or questions for Tricia on her presentation? Okay, there being none, we'll now move to Assistant City Engineer Travis Mabry. If you could go through the engineering comments, please.
Sure, Terry. This is actually very easy. Scott reviewed these plans. He wrote the memo that Tricia referenced dated December 8th. There's only 2 bullet points on it. One of them's already been addressed by Tricia, and that's updating the date on the plans, excuse me, to reflect the date that the site plan review notes were incorporated. So that one's already taken care of. Bullet point 2, the last one, was more or less a general comment. I talked to Scott about this. I think he just wants it in the some documentation in our files that the intent of the truck docking is very tight. It works. The turning templates are on there, and we've reviewed them, and they appear to be fine. He just wants to note that we don't want trucks parking out in South Industrial Drive. And so it's just kind of a general comment to that effect.
Thanks, Travis. Any questions, commissioners? Okay, thanks, Travis. Next, we'll move to the applicant. Give an opportunity for either Jeff or Adam to introduce any comments they'd like to share with the commission at this point in time.
So this is Jeff Scott. Adam's not on the call this evening from what I know, so I'm going to kind of handle it. So I don't really have any comments to really add or address to it. I think we covered a lot of it in the prior meeting. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any of the staff members have specifically in regards to the project, if there's any clarification that needed.
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Okay, so at this point, this is a public hearing. Entertain a motion to open the public hearing, please.
I will make that motion, Terry.
Motion by Tyler.
Support.
Supported
Steve
by
Gilbert.
Steve. All those in favor of opening the public hearing indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. The public hearing is opened. So again, if there's people out there that have questions about this particular project, questions or concerns, indicate so by raising your hand, either virtually by the telephone, iPhone, or your computer. Jason, anyone raising their
I'm
hand?
not seeing any.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Pat,
By Scott.
supported by Scott to close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, it looks like pretty straightforward in terms of the recommendations from staff. No particular issues have been raised.
Hey, Terry, I have one question. This is Pat.
Okay.
And I should have asked this to Tricia and to Travis. We're asking them to complete the landscaping and the sidewalk after the street is completed. Do we require a drawing or documents now to show what they're going to do when that time comes, or do we just say, okay, now it's time, and then they do it then? I mean, do we require something or not?
That's a good question, Pat. We can add a condition to have the revised plans show the landscaping and the sidewalk after that cul-de-sac is removed and its regular right of way there.
Tricia, I'll add to that a little bit. And Jeff, maybe you can jump in on this. Am I understanding correctly that at least on the sidewalk portion that when Northridge Phase 2 goes on, that the developer of Northridge Phase 2 will be installing the sidewalk, or is it the Hydrolico applicant?
So, Travis, I would say you're correct in that sense. To me, when the road is extended and the cul-de-sac, the temporary cul-de-sac that is there today is removed, it would be the developer's responsibility to place the sidewalks and place the landscaping when the road is extended.
And Tricia, I think, I could be wrong, but I think that's noted on the plans in one of the notes.
I think what Pat is getting at is should we have a visual representation, a graphic representation of the sidewalk and the landscaping as it would look when it is installed.
It won't hurt. I think the main benefit's probably from the landscaping perspective, but you might as well put the sidewalk on it while you're at it, I would say.
Travis, you're raising a question whether or not traditionally the developer who extends the street would cover that cost, or whether it would be, in this case, the applicant for the site plan review.
Yeah, we've talked about this during site plan review, and I thought I'd heard Jeff mention that the Phase 2 developer would take care of it. And it's been a while since I've looked at the plans, but I thought there was a note to that effect too. As long as the sidewalk gets installed by one or the other, we're fine with it, obviously. It's like you said, it's kind of a chicken egg type of discussion, I believe.
So as we look at considering the recommendation, the motion maker should, if they want to change from what has been recommended, that should be noted in the motion.
Well, my confusion is the developer or the landowner.
Well, the way it's written up right now, the developer of this project would be bearing the cost of the future extension of the sidewalk and landscaping.
Okay, as long as I understand that.
So Tyler, I would defer to sheet C1. There's a general note number 10 on there that says sidewalk shall be extended by the developer of South Industrial Drive when the temporary cul-de-sac is removed. That seems to imply that it's the developer of Phase 2 that would be installing the sidewalk, and not the Hydrolico applicant.
Well, so where do we stand on it? We got two different opinions now. My opinion is the lot owner develops the lot owner finishes their lot when it's done. That's what has been, we require them to put in sidewalk when the plan is approved, And my opinion is that we would require them to finish the sidewalk when the cul-de-sac is removed and with landscaping.
Yeah, maybe Jeff can speak to this. I think Jeff was trying to help out because it'd be a lot easier for the developer to get that sidewalk installed at the same time. I don't know if you guys are planning on doing a cost split with the applicant on this section of the sidewalk or not.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting point, Travis, because some of it comes down to timing, right? So if all goes well, that phase 2 will kick off, say, within the next year, and the road will go extended, and the developer of, putting that road extension through is responsible to also take out that temporary cul-de-sac. The lot owner itself today can't install the sidewalk where the temporary cul-de-sac is. Now, if something changes and that gets drawn out in terms of a delay on the phase 2 because of, the complications of crossing a railroad, or just economic conditions change or something, and that phase 2 of the road extension gets pushed, say 5-10 years down the road, it's, to me, at that point, more appropriate to have the person removing the temporary cul-de-sac put in the sidewalks then, when the temporary cul-de-sac's removed. That's just my opinion.
I have a question. Phase 2, does it have to go through a site plan review?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I really don't have a preference one way or another. I just have to make sure that we have it right today, so there's no question.
If you feel like we should amend the conditions to change the wording to the owner of lot 1 shall extend landscaping plantings, and then the developer of South Industrial Drive shall extend sidewalks. So replacing the applicant with the developer and or the property owner. Would that make more sense?
Well, is that acceptable to Jeff?
I think so, and I think given the fact that Trish and I are going to be working together over the next week or so in terms of the landscaping refinements, I think that we can clearly get the intent figured out for the landscaping piece that has to go there. And then I do agree that making the condition of basically, it's almost like you put the responsibility of the sidewalk onto the developer of the phase 2 road extension.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions or issues?
I was impressed with the how crowded you were at your facility in Granville when I went by it today. And this is a wonderful enlargement. How much of an improvement is this in size from your current facility?
So I know Peter Van Kempen's on the call. I don't know if he can unmute himself or not. I do know that they are definitely cramped today. They're at about 7,500 square feet and bursting at the seams. So this is definitely a vast improvement for them. And hopefully with any luck, in a few years, they'll be doing the phase 2 expansion area of their building as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a great place for you.
Yes, it should be. This is Peter Van Kempen. Yeah, we're pretty much jammed into that suite we're in right now, like a can of sardines. So this will really help.
Agreed.
We're actually running space in one suite down just to put some overflow already. So we'd like to have been here a year ago, but it is what it is. So.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for consideration?
I didn't hear what you said, Terry, but you broke up there.
Okay, do we have someone ready to offer a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve case number 20-880. Motion for Hydrolico, lot 1 of the IPUD 3164 Northridge Drive Northwest. I make a motion to approve final area site plan approval for the 20,000 square foot industrial building and related improvements shown as phase 1 of the site plan revision dated 12/14/18 for Hydrolico, proposed at Lot 1 of the Northridge East IPUD, also known as 3164 Northridge Drive Northwest, subject to the following condition. The applicant shall extend the landscaping plantings to the south property line of Lot 1 after the construction of the extension of the South Industrial Drive. The developer of phase 2 shall extend sidewalk construction to the south property line of Lot 1 after the construction of the extension of South Industrial Drive. The applicant shall submit full color building elevation renderings prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant shall revise the building elevation drawings to label the north elevation Northridge Drive elevation and the west elevation South Industrial Drive elevation. And the applicant agrees to all other conditions noted in the planning director's report dated 11/30/2020. Findings of fact: the Northridge East IPUD, as detailed on the final area site plan, continues to meet the standards contained in subsection 3G regarding preliminary site plan content and does meet any other applicable standards for review. The final area site plan is in substantial compliance with the previously approved preliminary site plan, consisting of the maps and accompanying written materials recorded on subsection 2 of section 94-213. The final area site plan complies with the uses permitted by the Northridge East IPUD and any prohibitions of specific uses by the Planning Commission pursuant to section 94-213 sub 3J. Appropriate service by public water and sewage utilities, public roads, and other essential services will be available for immediate use of occupants of Lot 1 of the Northridge East IPUD. Lot 1 will have direct access to the public collector of our arterial street. All future uses on Lot 1 will be designed, constructed, and operated to comply with the performance standards as provided by Article 15 of the Walker Planning Zone Ordinance. Loading docks and maneuvering areas will be designed and located so as not to adversely affect adjacent and neighboring lands or uses due to noise, odor, light, or other external effects. Except as otherwise expressly approved by the Planning Commission, all permitted principal uses on Lot 1 will be conducted within a completely enclosed building except for loading and unloading operations, on-site parking of vehicles, and the reasonable storage of materials and products which are related to the principal use of Lot 1 as shown on the final area site plan.
Hey, Tyler, one item to potentially add, I think Tricia wanted on there just to have the plan dates and revision dates added to the.
That's why I referenced all her conditions noted in her report dated 11/30/2020.
Support.
We have a motion by Jason, a motion by Tyler, supported by Jason, to conditionally approve the project as recited by Tyler in his motion. Are there any questions? We'll do this by roll call vote. Tricia, please.
Terry,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Pat.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. Welcome to the neighborhood. We now move to the next item on the agenda, case number 20-879. Again, a final area site plan review, public hearing, 2864 Walker Avenue for a Aloft Hotel Towneplace Suites by Mariott. Jason Vander, I believe, is representing the applicant in this case. And Tricia, if you could, as planning director, please introduce the project.
Yeah, so let me get this. I'm sharing my screen now to put my presentation up here. So we have within the Meyer commercial planned unit development, We have a proposal for a final area site plan for the Aloft Hotel and Towneplace Suites, which is a 2-hotel project on one site, and they are connected. So the action tonight requested by the Planning Commission is to review the final area site plan for Aloft Hotel and Towneplace Suites, and to provide an approval with or without conditions, denial, or tabling of the request. Again, this is a final area site plan review. The property address is at 2864 Walker Avenue. There is a Holton Court address on the application materials, but that has not yet been established for that particular parcel. And the proposed lot size to be split from the overall 11.2 acre parent parcel is 5.21 acres. The zoning district is the Myers CPUD. Future land use designation for this parcel is business, and it's located within the Northwest neighborhood, and its community character designation is enterprise. General location of the project site is off the end of Holton Court, just north of the Meyer gas station on Walker Avenue between 3 Mile Road and the I-96 entrance ramp. And our applicant is Jason Vander of Fishbeck, who is joining us tonight on behalf of the property buyer, Walker Hotel Group LLC, and the owner, which is still Meyer Incorporated. So just a little bit of background on the property itself and the proposed hotel chains here. So the property is situated behind the Meyer gas station, or north of the Meyer, or I'm sorry, east of the Meyer gas station parcel that was developed. It was the first final area site plan within that Meyer CPUD, developed in 2017. The developer also owns the Baymont Inn, which is one of the 2 existing hotels having access off Holton Court. So the Baymont is the one that's situated all the way in the back. And the Aloft Hotel and Towneplace Suites are both owned by Mariott, which is a national hotel chain. And I found that there is one Aloft Hotel located in Michigan in the Detroit area. And there's actually 2 Towneplace Suites locations in the Grand Rapids area. So just some architectural renderings here of these proposed hotel buildings. The Aloft Hotel looks to be pretty modern, and Towneplace Suites looks like your traditional hotel building. And so here's the site location if you were to drive by from Walker Avenue and looking to the southeast. You've got the Meyer gas station here. Over here is the intersection of Holton Court and Walker Avenue. And if you drive up Holton Court, you'll see a little hillside here. And you've got the proposed hotel site situated here at an elevation that's a bit higher than the Meyer gas station. So some more aerial photography here. This is the subject site here. Again, Meyer gas station, Starbucks. We've got some private roads here, and this is the McDonald's and the Bob Evans that has since closed. Another hotel here, the Quality Inn, and then we've got the Baymont Inn, which I previously mentioned. So adjacent zoning, this parcel is surrounded by planned unit development and light industrial. This particular CPUD zoning is part of a different PUD that was developed long before the parcels on the south side of Holton Court. which is part of the Meyer PUD. So this is a separate PUD. And then over here, we have the Meyer headquarters zoned light industrial. And then on the corner here of 3 Mile and Walker, we've got a zoning of office research and parking. And this is the overall site plan. They're proposing several areas of parking, lots of floor areas of hotel, conference rooms, pool, fitness center. And they're also proposing a bar restaurant area here at the entrance of the Aloft Hotel. And they are also proposing some landscaping, lighting, sidewalks, and stormwater management facilities and lighting. So I just wanted to go through some highlights from my staff report. So it should be noted that we held a site plan review committee meeting on back in November, on November 19th. And we provided several comments to the applicant, and when the revised plans were submitted, there was some new information that wasn't previously discussed, and then having to go through and just kind of piece some of these things together. I just want to note that there's still a lot of information that we don't yet have. And so I'll first go through the basic site plan elements that need to be addressed yet. We are in need of some additional details on the cover sheet. We don't have adequate retaining wall details. We have been provided with proposed signage, but we would like a summary that's kind of all on one page that would let us look at the signage proposal all at once. We do not see any floor areas for the dining area or bar area or food prep area. There are also no seating numbers for dining and bar areas provided. The FASP notes on the vicinity map shows some master plan information which has since been outdated. There is a type A buffer required as part of the PASP that should be delineated, that's not shown on the plan. And then we'd also like to see some building footprint dimensions on the plan to help us with some of the signage calculations. So as you know, this is a planned unit development, and the applicant is allowed to ask for what we call PUD benefits. And the benefits must be related to the general intent of the PUD chapter and keeping with character of the surrounding area. And so what they're asking for with this proposal is a reduced number of parking spaces. They're also asking for a 24-foot aisle width in their parking lot. They're asking for building height of 60 feet, and this includes 4 stories. And on top of that, there's 7 feet in signage that adds to that 60 feet. And then as far as signage goes for PUD benefits, they are requesting 2 monument signs and signage that faces the front and side yards. So this is a rendering of the Aloft Hotel, the building height and signage detail. I just wanted to show that this particular sign right here that was described in the sign package is proposed to be right here, and it is 7 feet tall. And so that is what is contributing to the proposed 60-foot in height for the building. We have, I want to go over some parking numbers as one of the first areas from the report that should have some attention paid to it. because the applicant is seeking a reduction in the number of parking spaces. So the number of parking spaces required is 228 per the uses that are proposed. And the number of parking spaces provided is 207. So I'm going to mention again that the applicant has not provided enough information for staff to determine if the WXYZ bar and restaurant will be open to the public. If it is open to the public, seating numbers and floor areas are needed to assess for parking needs and other aspects such as potential liquor license. Oops. So here's a little snapshot of the bar dining area. I did a rough estimate of the number of seats just in counting this being 2 seats, 2 seats, 2 seats. And so what I came up with was roughly 48 seats, and that did not include this outdoor seating area. This yellow area here is shown as the food prep area. So you walk into the Aloft Hotel and you walk right into this, this bar area. So again, we haven't received any floor areas or seating numbers for this particular area. So again, with the parking numbers and the request for a reduced number of parking spaces, so the applicant is also proposing to share parking in the event that there should be a need for some overflow parking with the adjacent hotel. This hotel is under the same ownership as this parcel would be if the purchase transaction goes through. So typically if there would be parking that's shared among 2 different uses or 2 different developments, we would require a shared parking agreement. But we haven't received any documentation indicating that this would be the deal, or you know, I drove through here. It didn't really look like there was much additional room other than for what the needs of this hotel are. So I just wanted to mention the importance of that. In talking about the landscaping, as I mentioned earlier, the landscape buffer has not been delineated on the plan. The applicant indicated that all the trees on the entire site will be cleared for the extensive grading that needs to occur here in order for the site to be prepped for construction. But I just want to note that there are several, we've got stands of birch here, old growth, oak, maple, and white pines shown here. It's always preferred that any trees that can be preserved should be preserved, especially when there's a note on the landscaping plan that indicates that a tree protection zone shall be established prior to construction. And then another thing that I noticed was that there are trees proposed where steep topography is shown on the grading plan. So this image on the left is the landscaping plan shown with plantings and trees in an area where the applicant was asked to add plantings there, but also said that it was too steep to add plantings there. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. The applicant is also proposing a facade material composed primarily of what we refer to as EFIS, or exterior insulation finish system. And that is not an approved facade material, mainly because it deteriorates quickly. It allows moisture in if it's not put together absolutely perfectly. And so here's just some examples of what this material can look like over time if it's not installed 100% perfectly. So my recommendation, based on the significant number of issues with this request, it unfortunately is recommended that the Planning Commission table any action until such time that the applicant can adequately satisfy each of the ordinance requirements and provide a significant amount of additional information related to the dine-in restaurant/bar.
All right, thank you, Tricia. Commissioners, any comments or questions concerning the planning director's presentation?
Terry, I'd like to talk for a second.
Certainly.
And I'm going to play devil. I'm going to play Tom here. Let's put it that way. Tricia, why is this plan before us? It is woefully incomplete. It is less than a preliminary site plan. I couldn't vote on this for anything. I have no interest in hearing about anything from the developer or anybody until they can get their ducks in a row. So why do I have to sit here and listen to this? And I'll ask the developer, why do I have to sit here and listen to this? This is crap, to be honest. I'm sorry. This is not what we're paid to do. This is not what our responsibility is to do. Your responsibility is to come to us with a plan, and it's not here. I looked at this week and it infuriated me, to be honest. This is second grade work. So whoever's in charge of this, shame on you. You're wasting our time. You're wasting your time. Thank you.
So Tyler, in response to that, I think if I were to do this over again, I would ask the Planning Commission or I would ask the applicant to be bumped to a future agenda until we could get the things that we're asking for to meet all the minimum requirements. Typically, I wouldn't bring a plan like this to the Planning Commission, but we got so far in the process, and so I decided to go with it. But you are 100% correct. It probably shouldn't be here at the Planning Commission.
The other aspect of this is that it is advertised as a public hearing, so we have a responsibility for those that have tuned in this evening to make the presentation, get the information from staff as well as the developer, and in order to at least acquaint the public with what the project involves, and if it a decision to table the request, it would either be tabled to a date certain, or there'd be a new public hearing sent out for the subsequent review of it. So I understand your frustration, Tyler, and to the extent that we can reiterate or the importance of some of the information that's missing, I think that would be part of our review this evening. And continue with the review. Are there any other questions of what Tricia's presented thus far? If not, we'll turn now to Assistant City Engineer Travis Mabry to go over the engineering review.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, like I said, just like the last site, Scott reviewed this plan. We have his memo dated December 8th in the packets. I'll just try to highlight some of the bullet points. The first one's this administrative sheet G001, which is page 2. On one of the attachments there references an old fire chief and an old DPW director. So we want to get those names updated. I think the next bullet speaks to sheet or page 5 in the sheets. And it talks about the driveway onto Holton Court should be adjusted to 30 foot in width, face to curb to face to curb. I think it shows 31 right now. That driveway also shows 88 truncated domes. Those are not required at a hotel driveway of this magnitude. So we propose that they be eliminated. It can cause confusion when they're applied to the wrong private driveways or that don't have enough volume to warrant their use. There is on, I think it's page 7 of the plans, talks about, it looks like it's a grading plan. It looks like about 20 feet of material is going to need to be removed from the site. So you might want to ask some questions. We haven't done any volume calculation to see how much actual soil that is over all of this acreage, but you can imagine there's going to be a lot of truckloads, and then the question is going to be, where's all that fill going? So if it's going to a site within Walker, the site receiving the fill needs to have a soil erosion plan on file with the city. Next bullet speaks to, it just kind of speaks to the stormwater. And the stormwater is actually kind of split to 2 existing ponds, one that's north of Baymont Inn, and the other one that's over by the Meyer corporate campus. We will be issuing a stormwater permit for this project when the construction time comes. And we're going to require that each pond be inspected and maintained to ensure that we have proper capacity. I'm not sure if the existing ponds have been cleaned out yet. And we want to make sure that that growth is removed so it can accommodate the stormwater. The next bullet's kind of my main hang up with the plan, and it has to do with the retaining wall. But basically there's 2 different retaining wall details, one that Fishbeck did and one that Bosch did. And they're vastly different. One shows a wall that's around 11 feet in height, and the other one shows one that's somewhere in the range of 20 feet in height. So this raises some red flags that we've got 2 different details of such. The other concern we have is that neither of the designs are stamped by a structural engineer with a retaining wall that high. We're going to want a structural engineer to review and stamp the retaining wall design. Alternatively to the retaining wall, or maybe to reduce some of the height, there could be some agreements worked out with the neighbors to get some temporary grading easements. There's not a lot of land with the neighbors behind the hotel site to the east, but there is a little bit of land there, and it could reduce that retaining wall height. And the last comment is sheet C502. Shows a hose bib out by the dumpster, and that's not allowed unless there's some sort of sanitary sewer inlet out there also that's covered when it's not in use and uncovered when it is in use. We can't be cleaning out dumpsters and sending that water to the stormwater drainage system. It's against the state rules and our ordinances on these activities. So that's a brief overview of Scott's memo. I can answer any other questions that you all may have.
Thank you, Travis. Commissioners, any comments or questions for Travis? Yeah, it does appear that to get the grades that they're finished grade they're looking for, they're going to be taking a lot of soil. I think that it was noted in there, there doesn't appear to be any place on site where they would relocate it. So it would be a matter of taking tremendous amount off the property. And I can see from the engineering standpoint, the concern that would be associated with that. Are there any other comments at this point for staff? There being none, now turn to the applicant. Is this Jason is going to be representing the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Please, if you have an opportunity to add additional comments for the commission's consideration.
Very good, thank you. Again, my name is Jason Vander. I'm a civil engineer with Fishbeck, project manager for the site plan. I have with me tonight a team of design professionals who have been working diligently over the last 3 months to prepare the drawings and the proposal in front of you tonight. On the call also are my staff engineer and senior civil engineer, Nate Torrey, our architect, Beth Johnson and Nick Lokes, and then our ownership group with Matt and Cardo and some others. So we appreciate your time and your attention this evening, and we're excited to present this fantastic project to the city of Walker. Tricia has done an admirable job of summarizing a very complex project, and I think she got most of the information to you very well. A few things I would like to add to it just for your benefit to give you some additional background on the project. And then I'm going to see if I can address some of her staff comments for you as well, in order to hopefully alleviate some public comment or help you guys understand as we can dialogue tonight. So I have talking points that I've prepared, and I think Trisha's picked up on most of them. So I'm just going to run through and grab the ones that I wanted to mention to you in addition. So of the 2 brands in the hotel, there will be 156 rooms total. On the Aloft side, there's going to be 75 rooms, and that's going to be in a 4-story tower. That's going to have its own entry canopy, its own lobby, and its own front entrance on the north side of the building. It will have attached conference rooms, and that's where the XYZ restaurant's going to be for our hotel guests. On the Towneplace side, there will be 81 rooms. It will also have its own entrance and lobby and desk area on the south side, which will be the south tower, also going to be a 4-story hotel. And then between the 2 brands are going to be the shared space with the fitness center, the pool, and the outside patio area that she did mention. So there's going to be about 105,000 total square feet, including both sides and the shared amenities. So it is a exciting project and good opportunity for the city of Walker. The site plan itself is going to have access to Holton Court for 1 driveway. That driveway is in fact 30 feet wide from face to curb to face to curb. The dimension that we provided was 31, and we dimensioned it from back of curb to back of curb, which is how our surveyors usually stake them. So there was one of the discrepancies with the engineering folks. So that's an easy one for us to clean up. From those 2 access points, the guests will have the drive aisles and the parking spaces internal to the site for circulation and parking, both for arrival and close to the rooms or the conference centers. Travis mentioned the retaining wall on the east property line and also the grading difference. In the topography, there's actually about 40 feet of grade differential between the low point on the private drive to the west and the high point on the property line there. So we're challenged to put a large flat building onto a slope site, and that's why we select retaining walls and grade transitions. Obviously, we have a coordination point between the civil drawings and the structural retaining wall drawings. We're happy to address that as a condition of approval. We're quite confident that we can come up with a retaining wall and a grading plan that matches. Just given the time constraint between the comment received and tonight's meeting, did not have an opportunity to complete that. We just received this comment list last Thursday evening, so we've only had a couple of days here to work through this with staff. The building will be served with underground utilities, and I believe that the engineering department and the fire chief are both satisfied with those proposals. We've worked through some of those issues together already. The signage package that we've provided is on the documents. We're happy to do a little better job summarizing the totals. But the signs are there, where the dimensions are there, and the signs that we're proposing are consistent with the application process in the city PUD request. Each of the 2 dumpsters will have its own enclosure. And as she mentioned, the stormwater is going to be conveyed to two existing basins. I was also the project manager, senior engineer for the Meyer PUD. And at that point in time, a portion of the site that the Meyer PUD occupies is also included in this PUD. And that's why we have a shared stormwater system between the 2 PUDs. And that was completed in November of 2017. So not everybody on this call was present back then, but we worked through those issues at that time. And I believe that the city engineer is satisfied with that proposal. I don't think there's questions on the stormwater, if I'm not mistaken. As far as the restaurant seating concern that was raised, it is not our intent for this restaurant to be a public restaurant where we're advertising to try to get the public community to come join us for dinner. This restaurant is intended to be, as most hotel restaurants will be, for our patrons and anybody who may choose to visit a patron, but it's not something that's intended to be a destination within the community. As such, we viewed, and similar with our conference rooms. So our conference rooms are intended to support the hotel functions, and specifically with Meyer. Meyer is selling the property to the applicant, and one of the underlying conditions is not the word. One of the underlying business arrangements is that Meyer and their vendors will be able to use these facilities to do some of those external meetings as well. So that's a part of the reason for those conference rooms and for the XYZ restaurant. As such, when we ran the parking numbers, we included the conference room space per code, and we included the hotel spaces per code and put those together into a parking number requirement. What that doesn't really reflect with the code is the fact that those parking spaces are going to be shared by the hotel guests for the conference room space and the hotel room space. So you have one guest using the hotel room and the conference center, and the code is requiring us to put in a parking space for each one of those uses. So rather than try to overpark the site, because of the shared use, we've tried to right size the parking. And the way that we've done that is to take about, of the 72 spaces that are required for the conference center, I think we've deducted maybe 20 for shared use between the hotel and the conference center. So that's why we're asking for a parking reduction on the PUD benefit, because we're anticipating some shared use. The similar philosophy applies with the restaurant space. Typically, the restaurants are used by the hotel guests and anybody who may choose to join them from out of town. But it's not a large parking driver. And so we're considering that space to be a shared space with the hotel as well. Just receiving these comments last Thursday evening, we haven't had a chance to provide good dialogue with the city staff and work through that together. But from a planning commission perspective, wanted to explain that to you guys as well, and the rationale for the way that we've prepared the proposal. There wasn't necessarily an error or omission there. It was how we were looking at the shared uses and the shared space within the building. So those square footages and spaces within the building have been tallied into our parking count. We've just allocated them a little differently than I think the planning staff was expecting. Moving on to the tree question. Obviously, with 40 feet of grade to make up across the site, even if we were able to ferret out a tree or two that is close to an existing grade, we would be impacting the grade around that tree, the root system, and the trees adjacent to it. And any tree that we would be able to save within the building footprint and parking area would not survive given the impact of the new construction. So the trees that we were proposing to save, if any, would be around the perimeter of the site, which is consistent with how we had labeled this, the CPUD preliminary area site plan back in 2017 when we came through with the Meyer site. So the general note on the note on the landscaping plan that Tricia was referring to for saving trees is intended for any tree that will be saved. In other words, along the perimeter, or if we've selected one that we think we can keep. And in this case, we were referring to the trees along Holton Court. There are several maple trees along Holton Court as street trees in the city's right-of-way that we're expecting to have to protect, or to make our contractor protect, so that those can remain in place between the sidewalk and the road. We're trying to avoid those being impacted. So that note was intentional for those trees. It just wasn't clearly labeled that it was for those trees and not for the trees on the site. Similarly, with the trees on the slope, we received a review comment that we should add some trees there, and so we did. We did note that they're on a slope, but trees are able to grow on the slopes, and we're happy to plant them there to comply with the ordinance. So that's what we're proposing. I've been doing a lot of talking. Let me take a quick peek here at the notes to make sure I haven't overlooked something. Oh yes, the master plan note comment, that was just, I believe, referring to a general note that we had on a cover sheet. And we're happy to update that general note to reflect the current master plan. But in any event, it's still within the Myers CPUD, and the project is still compliant with the city's municipal uses. As far as the type A buffer goes for the landscape, that was also a delineation carried from the CPUD PASP and was intended to be just on the perimeter of the project. Within the project, we've provided a professionally prepared landscape drawing as part of the set. And the building dimensions, I think that was a plot issue that we had, and I thought we had corrected that. Obviously, working from home in the COVID area presents its challenges. And when we as a company present the documents and we're all working from home, we rely on teamwork to do that between myself, the engineer, the CAD technician, the print room folks, and the delivery folks. And so when you have 5 different people in 5 different places, plus coordinating with our consultants working on something, it can be a real challenge to try to have all of those items plot correctly without having a good quality check on the print room product. So we apologize for that. We worked through it with Tricia. We provided some resubmittal information, and that's something that we have. The drawing is to scale. We can turn it in with the dimensions. It's simply a graphics oversight. So we appreciate you granting some grace on that to us and not dinging us too hard. I think at that I'm gonna, I think I've covered everything that Tricia had commented on. Oh, the Baymont Inn. One other communication point and clarification for you is at this time we are not proposing shared parking with the Baymont Inn. We do have adequate parking on site according to what we're anticipating for our rooms and our guests. Our owner does own the Baymont Inn, and if we need an overflow parking area, one of our conversations or one of our Zoom phone calls included that as a possibility. However, we're not at this point planning to do that. We haven't submitted to do that. And so there's not any information missing on that. It was just raised at one point in the project as a possibility, but at this point in time, our applicant is not pursuing that. So that's why it was omitted from the package, because it's not part of our proposal this evening. And I think that wraps up my talking points. I appreciate your time tonight, listening to our thoughts and comments. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've got a team of professionals working on this for several months. We put a lot of sweat and tears into it, and we're excited to go through it with you guys. Happy to answer any questions or have our architect on the call answer any questions as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Commissioners, any comments or questions?
Terry, I'd like to make a statement. I inquired of the city if this was a joint venture with Meyer. The city officials reached out to Meyer, and Meyer requested that their name not be brought into any of this negotiation. They only own the land. So unless the developer has some agreement with Meyer, we should not be considering this a joint venture or anything associated with Meyer at all. That was relayed to me by city officials. So I felt obligated. I had to say something.
Thank you, Tyler. And I did not mean to imply that it was a joint venture. It is on behalf of Walker Hotel Group LLC. And that is our client. That's the applicant in the project. So I apologize if I did not clearly communicate that earlier.
Any other comments or questions?
Where does the Mariott fit into this?
So it's my understanding that the Mariott
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. The question, if I understand it, is how does Mariott fit into this? And it is my understanding, and either somebody can correct me on our team or Tricia if I'm mistaken, that the Mariott is the owner of the brand names Aloft and Towneplace Suites. So Aloft and Towneplace Suites are branded hotels, and the franchise owner or the franchise not the local franchisee, but the franchisor is Mariott Hotels. So those are the standards that we developed to in order to meet their branding and use their brand on the hotel, on the hospitality spaces. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? I've got a couple. In terms, there was commentary concerning the exterior building materials that are proposed for this project. In light of the comments, are you looking at an alternate building material, or are you wishing to go forward with what's portrayed on the plans?
Fantastic question. I apologize for omitting that. The answer is we are investigating other materials, and it's my understanding that that's in process. Either Beth or Nick, who's on the call, perhaps you could give us an update on that.
Hi, this is Beth Johnson with Bosch Architecture. Yes, we are in the process of updating the drawings to show an improved material based on your ordinance. That is kind of a lengthy process because we do have to go back to the brand, which is Mariott, and have them review everything. They want to look at maybe a couple different materials versus one big material based on the size of the building. So we are in the process of doing that, but I'm sorry, with the week that we had, we weren't able to complete that.
Thank you, Beth. Does that answer your question, Mr. Chair?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Another question, within the site, you've got building areas that on the plan are, I guess, shaded in gray. The white areas, between the buildings, is that hardscape? Is that landscaped? What is that going to consist of?
Which drawing number are you looking at, if I may ask?
At C201.
Okay. So on this, so those areas, I believe the white areas in between the gray areas are landscaped areas, lawn. And that's going to be on the drawing L001, which is the next sheet in the set. So that gives the building footprint outline. There is going to be some sidewalk in the middle there, and there's also a paved patio in the middle there. But to the east of the parking area, outside the sidewalk and the patio, is going to be grassed lawn area. So it will be landscaped. It will not be. It'll be lawn. It won't be hardscape. It is not going to be building or roof.
Okay, when I looked at the landscape plan, that wasn't real clear to me that it was going to be grass area.
Okay.
That,
yeah, we'll be happy to get a lawn label in there for you.
It was mentioned by the city engineer's office, what appears to be a tremendous amount of soil to be removed from the site. Is that a true assumption? And it would be helpful to coordinate with staff about where it's going to end up so that in terms of maintaining the rest of the community, that they can be assured that it's going to be properly addressed.
So in answer to your question, I don't know for sure how much material is going to be exported from the site. We haven't run an earthwork calculation on it yet. We do our best as civil engineers to balance the site to the best of our ability, given the constraints that we have. In this case, we have the Lemon Drive private intersection right behind the Starbucks that we're connecting to. And we have Holton Court that we're connecting to. And so what we've done is set the finished floor elevation of the hotel as high as we possibly could in order to minimize the import or export need. That means that the west side of the site, specifically under the conference rooms, and the driveway to the west of the conference rooms is going to be built up with fill material. And the area on the east side of the site along the neighbor's property is going to be excavated out. Scott and Travis have been doing this a long time, and they've got a pretty good judge of what comes in and what goes out. And I would agree with them that we're probably going to be exporting from this site, given the size of the slope of the hill and the size of the flat building that we're trying to place here. However, as to the quantity of fill, we haven't calculated that yet. because it's not something that we really have control of on the site. It just winds up being, it is what it is. And we design the site as best we can within those constraints. So I would, if you go back to the previous sheet, I'm sorry. Beth asked us to reorganize the sheet so they're not where I usually look for them. Give me a minute here. There is a sheet, sheet 102, which is, I believe, at the end of the first set, and that shows that there's a stabilized construction entrance right near the cul-de-sac on Holton Court. So we're anticipating whatever earth moving loads have to come in or off the site. You know, we'll be hauling in sand and gravel for our parking lots, and we'll be exporting some material for those cuts. And we're anticipating putting our construction drive on Holton Court up near the top of the cul-de-sac in order to minimize the impact from any of that activity to the motoring public. Also allow us to minimize any soil erosion concerns by not putting that at the low point of the site, and that way we can maintain our erosion on site and do the import-export in the least impactful manner that we can, while still staying away from the Baymont Inn and the other hotel drive access as well. So we're planning for it, we're expecting it, but I don't have a firm number for you tonight. I'm sorry. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it underscores that the need for good communication with city staff as you get that information further into the process. Has there been efforts to approach the adjacent property owners to seek grading easements as was suggested by the engineering office?
Yes, there have. We've been in touch with both of those property owners. I'm not privy to all the conversations because that's gone through our legal team. And it's my understanding that those are possible, but we have not secured them yet. So I can't make any statements tonight as to whether or not those negotiations will be successful or not. We are preparing our document conservatively, so the civil drawings show that those easements are not in place. If we're able to get them in place, that would potentially offer us some cost savings. So there's some incentive for us to do that. However, obviously the cost savings, depending on the cost of the easement, might be limited. So there's a cap on what those are worth, you know, in the negotiations to us.
Okay.
As far as those fill calculations, those are something that we usually handle during the stormwater permit and soil erosion permitting phases. We don't typically handle that during site plan approval.
Correct. Okay, but just that communication as you go through the process will be important.
Absolutely. Yep.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions? If not, this is a public hearing. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing, Chair.
Motion by
I'll support that.
Supported by Jason to open the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Public hearing's open. Again, alert the Jason, who is our IT guy, to if you want to raise your hand, and we will take any comments or questions there may be from the public.
And as a reminder on the phone, *9 will raise your hand. I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Jason, supported by Tyler to close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Commissioners, we've had the project described here. We had some discussion about the issues. We've got a recommendation from staff. Any conversation concerning that?
Terry, you cut out for a second at the end of your sentence there.
Okay, sorry. So we've got the project reviewed, an overview of that, commentary from staff. some responses from the applicant. And what you have in front of you is a recommendation from staff to table the request in light of missing information. Additional detail and explanation was given verbally tonight that should be reduced to writing so that it is clear on the reasoning for what they're requesting in terms of PUD benefits and the like.
Well,
Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to make the comment. I like the project and I like everything that's going on. It just feels like they have a lot of questions that are sitting there that need to be answered. And I think they have the answers, but we need to get those, you know, kind of in writing and documented prior to being in this position. There's just a few too many holes that are sitting in there to, you know, kind of push through with this. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of objections here. We're maybe just not quite ready yet, is my opinion on it.
I'd agree with that. Those are good comments, Jason.
I would agree with Jason. I have no problems with the project. The project has nothing wrong with it at all. It's a decent project and everything, but we got to patch up the holes. There's a lot of holes. So
Yeah, I was just gonna, I think Jason, you're right on the money. The hotel in concept I think is good, but at this point I feel like I'm working at the concept level a little bit because there's so many details that I'm kind of waiting to hear back on. Staff raised a lot of, I think, fair questions, and I think once we have more of that information back, we can move forward. And once we get all of that together and we can get ourselves on the rails, we can get moving forward. That's my.
It just feels like there's a lot of items that they can answer, and there's a good answer for it. It's just not documented and prepared for us yet.
Right.
Well, and I would stress that if they're going to open a restaurant with liquor, they need a liquor license, and that's an impossible task in Walker.
And Tyler, you're exactly right. That's the other part that was on my mind too. That we've been through a similar process, and making sure that the liquor license component gets moving as well is very important to me as the city commission representative, because we recently had a hotel approved and they came after the fact for the liquor license, and that did not get approved for them. So.
Okay, any other comments?
I'd like to chime in on the parking. It seems like we need a little more direction on to include the restaurant numbers or not to include them, or to say that they're going to be. I'm looking for a little bit more standard there to kind of figure out which direction we should go.
Well, this seems like something that's probably going to require a bit of discussion, right? Because it is some interpretation of the use of the spaces. Trisha, am I kind of correct in saying that? And for my part, I don't necessarily have an issue with the parking and the leniency that they've requested. Just because I do see the merit of what they're saying, and that a lot of these spaces are shared spaces within the hotel, and some of that should be or could reasonably be applied to the calculations. But I think, again, that's a longer discussion.
Well, and along those lines, Jason provided a rationale there that perhaps makes some sense and would justify it, but it would be better to have that, as I believe our Jason indicated, is some documentation of that, so we have that in hand, and when it comes to preparing to take action on the request, that is clear to everybody, and it can be understood in any action taken by the city. In that respect, in terms of just the comments that we've shared here, that we appear to be inclined to follow the staff recommendation to table action on this. As I mentioned before, if we can table it to a date certain, then there isn't a need to renotice it. If we leave it open-ended, there may be a need to renotice for the renewing the discussion on it.
So you're looking for a specific date in the motion?
Well, I guess I'd look to staff, Tricia, in terms of what needs to be done. What would be is there in a foreseeable future, can you identify a date where this would could be reconsidered by the commission?
I mean, I would feel more comfortable with keeping it open-ended and adding it to the agenda. We'll be noticing it anyway, regardless of, you know, we've held the public hearing tonight, so that part is done. But we always send out a courtesy notice to folks within 300 feet. And we just won't put it in the paper. That would be the only difference. But I would rather work with Jason and Beth to see if we can get some of these questions answered, to have some more clarity on the items that we've discussed tonight, instead of, you know, nailing down a date right now.
Okay.
Jason, I don't know what your preference is, but
my preference would be a date certain. I'm pretty confident in our ability to get the documents updated. Again, we've only had 3 days, 3 business days to look at it and work on it. So it's not been a lot of response time for us. But I'm confident that we have most of the answers. And as you guys have alluded to tonight, it's going to be a matter of getting them on the paper for you rather than trying to figure out how we're going to tackle it. So I don't see that being a long and arduous process for us.
With the one exception, though, that Beth had mentioned in regards to the exterior facade, and those types of finishes may take quite some time, and that is
to get that
something that we'll want to go through.
To get that through the brand may take a little time. If we have a deadline to drive that, that's a lot more helpful for us than just saying we have to get back to them. And also, I think her point was that we aren't going to be using EFS. We will use materials from your approved list. So I'm confident that we can get back to you folks with answers. If we can't, then I'll have to eat crow and admit that we didn't get it done in time with corporate. But we're going to work hard to make sure that we can do that for you within the ability that we have.
Oh, so looking at about January 20th. Reasonable or not, or that's a month?
Yeah, are you on a 2-week or a 1-month cycle? I don't know if you're doing one for the holidays or if you're skipping that one.
First and third Wednesdays of the month.
So you're doing the first one after the new year?
Yeah, 6th and 20th of January. Unless Tricia says no, but I don't know that she would.
I think the 20th would probably be more appropriate than the 6th, mainly because the holidays are mixed in there, and having to typically I get a planning commission packet out on the Thursday before the meeting, and that happens to fall on New Year's Eve, and then we have New Year's Day right after that. So we could shoot for January 20th. I can work with you, Jason, on deadlines for when I would need all of the information so that I have enough time to review and write my report. Yeah,
absolutely. Is there any chance to move it up if we get deadlines earlier and stuff comes together quickly for us? I mean, it's possible that corporate could get to us quick, and it's possible that it could take a few weeks. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm happy with the 20th if we can move up to the 6th if we get everything, and if we don't, we go with the 20th. I don't, back to the flexibility point.
Well, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not going to be in the office for the 20th, or I'm
Okay.
sorry, the 21st through.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Sorry.
Yeah, so, I mean, we do have an agenda for the 6th. You know, we are meeting on the 6th, so I will have to get a planning commission meeting or a planning commission packet out that Thursday, but I would rather to give us enough time, since I have so much vacation planned already, the 20th would work much better.
I understand. I wasn't familiar with that constraint.
Well, it sounds like we got some direction here. Is there a motion?
Well, then I would make a motion to table oh geez, where am I here? Case number
2879.
20-879 until the 20th of January. Pending
staff.
Any action until such time that the applicant adequately satisfy each of the ordinance requirements and provide a significant amount of additional information related to the dine-in restaurant and bar.
Support.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Mark to table request to January 20 as described in Tyler's motion. Is there any question? There being none, Tricia, could you run a roll call vote, please?
Yep. Terry?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. The project will be, we'll see this again on January 20 of 2021.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Planning Commissioners. We appreciate your time and your input tonight. We'll take it back. We'll get to work and we'll coordinate with Tricia to make sure that she's got what she needs to move us forward on the 21st.
Very good. Thank you, Jason. In terms of the remainder of the agenda, anything from staff in terms of what's in near future?
Like I said, we have one item on our January 6th agenda, and it is a proposed amendment to the Walker View industrial or commercial PUD. So the commercial is the end that fronts Walker Avenue. So they would like to add a gas station as a use that's permitted in 2 of those commercial lots. And then other than that, we have potentially Waterford Village on the 27th of January, tentatively, obviously based on the status of the pandemic. And we'll probably meet somewhere off site if we can even meet in person at all. Have a lot of things in the hopper, but those are the applications we have so far.
Hey, thank you, Tricia. If apparently there is someone out in the audience that would like to comment. If you guys don't mind, let's take that comment and or whoever stayed around here this long.
Be *6 to unmute yourself on the phone.
Jason, did it come through?
No, I'm not seeing. It might have been a miss, like hit the wrong keys or something. I'm not sure.
Okay. They haven't reappeared then?
Their hand's still raised, but I haven't seen the phone unmute.
Okay. Well, if you can hear us here, we'd like to hear from you, but if we can't hear you tonight, if you could just either call into staff or email into the city and share your concern or question. Is there any other business this evening?
Patricia, this is Pat Laurie. On that inside storage that we reviewed a couple weeks ago, talking about the U-Haul truck sitting outside, they're still sitting out. They're still sitting out there. They actually moved them to around the back of the building. So there's some in the front, but then they moved the rest around the back of the building.
Yeah, we received an email indicating that, and so Megan Gorby, our ordinance enforcement specialist, has sent an email out to, a letter to the folks from Pagoda Self Storage. So she's initiating the enforcement side of things with that use, and they just recently had their attorney contact Megan to notify her that they plan to pursue an appeal of her determination to find them in violation. So they plan to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to appeal her order to cease and desist the moving truck portion of the business.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing on the hotel we just listened to. Is there a traffic study that needs to be done at all? I mean, would that impact that area? I mean, that area is already pretty busy. I didn't see anything in the paperwork. We didn't talk about any traffic studies, but would that be required for that amount of added traffic?
Travis, if you're still there, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, so I'm coming into this late, right? I sat through part of the site plan review on this, but Scott's done most of the review on it. I have not heard anything about a traffic study being required. I would not anticipate that the hotel would drive the numbers high enough to really impact that signal there. And we have an existing signal. So any changes we need to do, we could work with Grand Rapids on down the road, but I think it's pretty minor traffic impact.
Yeah, I just thought of it. I mean, I see more Amazon trucks there than anything, but yeah.
You're exactly right. That's going to change the signal timing more than anything else.
Well, and Bob Evans is closed too. We'll see what goes in there. So.
Good question.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
Do a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Scott, supported by
Aye, everybody.
Pat. All those-
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas,
Yeah.
guys.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Thanks,
COVID Christmas.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Take care.